In order to navigate through the New Testament, particularly the Gospels and the early parts of the book of Acts, there are certain Jewish political and religious groups that you're going to have to be conversant with, and I want to go through these things with you now in turn. The first, the most important of these Jewish groups was known as the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was the Jewish ruling council. Now, during the time of the first century, during the time that the New Testament was written, the entire Mediterranean world was dominated and controlled by the Roman Empire, and that includes the land of Palestine. So the Sanhedrin, they were not independent rulers. They were rulers over southern Israel, strictly at the sufferance of the Roman governor. The Roman governor was the final authority, and they ruled under him, and they reported back to him. That's the Jewish Sanhedrin, or Jewish ruling council. The Sanhedrin was made up of a number of various shifting political and religious alliances between the leading groups within Israel. One of the groups that's mentioned, not quite as importantly as some of the others, are the Herodians. They are named after King Herod, who is a kind of quasi-Jewish king. His Jewish credentials are not impeccable, but he's a Jewish king who rules over portions of Israel, not including Jerusalem and the environs of Judea. So the Herodians were the political party that were under the patronage of King Herod and supported King Herod and his dynasty. It's a second King Herod who's ruling then. A second group that's found within the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, are the Sadducees, and they are politically the most powerful of the groups within the Jewish ruling council. The Sadducees were the party of the high priests, the high priestly family. It was a hereditary office within Jerusalem. It had lasted for about 150 years, and these were the people who controlled the temple. These were the people who had the most contact with the Roman occupying authorities. They were regarded by the body of the Jewish population as traitors, as turncoats, because they did collaborate with the occupying force of the Romans. However, the Sadducees were in fact very religiously conservative. They believed that only the first part of the Jewish Bible, that is the Torah or the Pentateuch, was actual authoritative scripture for them. They rejected the rest of the Bible, including the histories and the prophets and the writings, and they only thought that Jewish doctrine was true if they could find explicit mention of it in the Torah. As a result of that, although I think they had to do some theological gymnastics to get to this position, but they didn't believe in angels, they didn't believe in the resurrection of the dead. They were pretty much very rigidly in controlling the Jewish religious imagination through controlling the temple activities. And they were the most powerful, and they were the ones who cooperated with the Romans, and they were the party of the high priests. And there was a dual, I think, uncle-nephew high priestly rule at the time of Jesus, Annas and Caiaphas. And they were both the high priestly rulers. They were both members of the Sanhedrin. The group that's mentioned most often and will have a lot of importance for us are the Pharisees. The Pharisees were a religious group. Their leaders were rabbis. They too were very religious, but their religion was a little bit more open-ended than was the religion of the Sadducees. Their scripture was larger. Their rituals were kind of modern day for their time adoptions of the requirements of the Jewish law, which had of course been written 1,000 years earlier or a little bit less than that. So they were willing to adapt and modify the law to make life easier to live. They were very religious, they were very popular, and frankly, they were the group whose teachings were most similar to the teachings of Jesus. Jesus argued with the Pharisees a good deal because they were so close to him. When he talked to the Sadducees, he seemed to dismiss them and not really have much time for them. But the Pharisees, he was always willing to debate and argue because they were so close in belief. And there actually were 2 recorded instances of Pharisees who became followers of Jesus, and maybe more than two. So there was a significant group within the Pharisaic party that either supported Jesus or left him room, who saw him as, in fact, one of us. Two other groups, not within the Jewish ruling council, but equally important within the configuration of Israel, really by their opposition to the Sanhedrin and the Jewish ruling council. And they are, first, the Zealots, and yes, that is where we get the word zealot and zeal from. And the Zealots were the Jewish religious revolutionaries. They saw it as their religious obligation to fight, to die, to be martyred, to drive out the foreign invaders, that is, the Romans. They hated the collaborators, the Sadducees in particular, and the tax collectors, and would in fact murder them on occasion. Jesus actually appointed at least one and maybe two of his original disciples were in fact from the Zealot party. So he drew from these religious revolutionaries to become his followers. And the final group are the ones known as the Essenes. And the Essenes are never mentioned once in the New Testament, but they appear to have been a very important and influential group at the time of the New Testament and the birth of Christianity. They felt that the Jewish urban community, particularly the one found in Jerusalem, was so utterly corrupt and irredeemable, had so besmirched itself through compromise and cooperation with the Roman ruling authorities, that they felt that the only way for a Jew to remain pure is to pull out from this quasi-Roman Jewish authority in Jerusalem and establish their own community. And the only place that they were able to establish their own community was in the Dead Sea area. That's the area around the Dead Sea in southern Palestine. It's an absolutely inhospitable place. It's dry, very little rainfall. The lake itself is dead because it's loaded with minerals and nothing could live in it. You can't drink it. You can't irrigate with it. There's no plants to speak of that grow in this area. And somehow the Essenes managed to make a life for themselves and established a community in the Dead Sea that lasted for hundreds of years. It was a very strict community, strict dietary laws. They not only followed the Jewish dietary laws, they were vegetarians. It was incredibly difficult to join the community. There was like a 3 or 4 year waiting period. Actually, people who wanted to live there. They separated the sexes. In most cases, they would not allow people to have marital relations. It was a very weird, apocalyptic group. They regarded themselves as the only true Jews. They felt that the world was about to be destroyed, and they were the ones who were going to inherit the kingdom from God. They're not mentioned once in the New Testament. There are some very interesting theories, however, that perhaps John the Baptist, who did baptize in an area very close to the Essene community, which, by the way, is frequently identified with the Dead Sea community, which they found all those scrolls in 1948. There's some theories that John the Baptist might have had some relations with the Essene community, and in fact might have stayed with them, and they might have shaped some of his teachings. And if you read the sermons of John the Baptist, it very much seems to be that way. There's also some theories, much less substantiated, that Jesus might have even had some contact with the Essenes and the so-called lost years of Jesus' life. We hear about him from the age of 12, and then we don't hear about him again until he's around 30 or 33. So maybe he spent some time in the Essene community. We do not know. There is no early evidence of that fact. But these I guess I have 6 groups here, are they're vocabulary words that you will need to know in order to navigate with comprehension the New Testament. Thank you.